Now again, making sure that you understand Marx's theory. Karl Marx wanted to make sure that the problems of the workers would be solved in this new economic theory. So first slavery, then feudalism, then capitalism is which rich people invest in businesses and then they build businesses and factories and hire wage earners. Now early on in capitalism it was very messy and we've talked about that. And capitalism was the system used in the Industrial Revolution. But Karl Marx said after capitalism, which replaced feudalism, which would replace slavery, the world would see a perfect world where government would give to everybody equally, called communism. And again, this is going to be a huge development in the history of the world. Now the final three questions on this screencast, looking at their letter E, in what ways did the governments in Europe and the United States react to the negative effects of industrialism? Look, communism threatened to destroy every democracy that industrialized if the workers revolted in a huge revolution. So what these democracies, what these governments did that used democracies like the United States and like England and France, is they started to give more rights to vote to people. And England is an example. In Germany, they started to do something called state pensions. A pension is when you work for a company or when you work your entire life, you save up retirement benefits that the government pays you so that when you reach the age of not working, you still get a check. And in the United States, free public education. So the idea was all your major governments that industrialized began to say, we have got to start solving the problems of the Industrial Revolution. And the government had to become a problem solver or the people might revolt and turn to Karl Marx's theory of communism. Because if they turn to Karl Marx, what they're going to end up doing is taking over the capitalists, seizing all land, and then building a new government that would then give to everybody equally. And in that system, there would be no private land ownership. So that's what these governments are afraid of. Now, explain the development of the middle class and working class. And this is very important. In every industrialized society, you're going to begin to see this. Now, if you look at the old system, absolute king who's in power, landed aristocrats and clergy, and they would own basically almost up to 90% of the wealth of a country, and then you have the serfs or proletariats, landless whites. As the Industrial Revolution got started, it began to change these countries in this regard. You had a large poor class that was very poor, but then you had a working class that would move from the farms. And you got to remember, most of your workers in the Industrial Revolution in these countries came from the farms. And they were called working class, and they were proletariat. They were landless. Working conditions were very hard. But then you started to see something develop that had not existed in a large degree. And that's called a middle class. A middle class people make enough money that they are very comfortable. And they have something where they have leisure time, where they're basically able to have a lot of time that they're able to spend doing things they love. And this is why the Industrial Revolution is going to develop the idea of professional sports. Because as the middle class gets bigger, they have extra money and extra time to devote to other things than working and providing for a living. And then you have the super, super rich. In fact, in the Industrial Revolution, you're going to see the development of, for the first time, the word millionaire is going to exist. So that explains the changes here. This is an agricultural world here. This is starting to look like the modern world that we have. And in fact, most of us now fall in the middle class in America. But you do have those that are part of the working class that they're renters, they don't own their own homes, and then you have the super poor in the United States. So our society now looks very much like this here, where agrarian, it used to like this, and this is a huge change over time. But this only occurred in industrialized societies. Explain the changes in family and gender roles and demographic changes. Well, let's first look at families. They became smaller, less kids, especially in the middle class. High schools developed. And as a result of that, you're going to see for the first time in industrialized society this idea of teenagers. You see, in an agrarian world that we saw in the previous slide, you were a child and then you turned into an adult. And you did it very young, usually around age 12 to 13. There was no prolonged period of adolescence, like you're neither a child, you're neither an adult, like what we have today. The reason why school is going to get longer and longer through the 12th grade, and high school is an invention of the Industrial Revolution, is because in an industrialized society, you need to have a working population that can read and write. Because if you're going to operate sensitive machinery, you got to know how to do that, and that requires greater skills, technical skills of reading and writing, and math skills than, say, an agricultural world in which you're farming, and you'll learn most of that anyway by watching your dad or your mom farm. So again, in families and in teenagers, children, huge change. The middle class, gender roles are going to change. Mothers are now called mothers of citizens. Their main role in industrialized, middle class women's main role now is to raise children, not have children, but raise children. And you say, what's the difference? In agricultural societies, they were to have many children and they would be raised. But now these mothers of citizens are going to attend more to their education, are going to devote more time to their children. Children become something for the first time. They've always been a necessity for economics. You need children to be farm workers. Now children are seen for pleasure. In the sense of we have children not for economic reasons, but because we want to have children. And all due respect, children today cost a lot more money to raise in an industrialized society than they will ever give back to the family economically. And if you were to think about it, add up all the dollars you cost your parents, and you'll get an idea that the role of children has changed as well. The cult of domesticity, you're going to do that in your study groups coming up, so that's going to be a separate reading. Demographics, cities explode. Rural to urban migration, you're going to see people by the millions leave the farms and go to the cities, and then push-pull of migration. They're going to have reasons to leave. Mainly they're going to leave the farms to find work. A reason to leave. Why are they going to go to cities? There's work. Early on, this is going to be messy until governments step in and start solving some of the problems.